In this tutorial I want to show you how you can create this counter in After Effects with a simple expression. I create here a new composition. I name it counter, it doesn't really matter how you name it. I set the width to 9020 and height by 1080 pixels. I set the frame rate to 30 and the duration also to 30 seconds. I set the background color to a white color, but you can choose your own color of course. If everything is okay, I press OK. And now we see this, and then I want to select the text tool here on the toolbar above, and I click here on the white canvas and I press 100. My font is Franklin Gothic, and what I now want to do is I want to center this by a line. If you can't see this step here, you need to go to Window and choose Align. And now I choose this toggle button and also this one to center this. And now I go to Layer, New, and I want to create a null object. I zoom a little bit in again, and now I take the pen behind here on the toolbar above. I be sure that snapping is on, and I want the anchor point in the center of the square. And I want to center this also on the canvas, so it needs to be centered on the 100. And I do this again by Align, so I press again Align horizontally and align vertically. And normally now the null object is in the middle of the 100. I select the null object, I go to Effects, Expression Controls and Slider Control. And normally you see this. Then I need to toggle the 100 open, the text, and normally you see source text. If you drag this here, you don't see a difference, and that's okay. We need to open the source text here, the expression toolbar, to pressing Alt on your keyboard, hold it and tap here on the stopwatch. So now you see this bar, and you need to select a null object again and take this symbol. If you can't see this symbol, you need to go to click here with your right mouse, columns and parent and link. So I drag this to the slider, and normally you see this expression. I type here math dots round. Be sure that the M from math is with a capital letter, and I take this last thing here from math.round and I do Ctrl X to paste it here, Ctrl V, and then I press enter. And what this does is it rounds the number. And if I slide here, you see that the numbers change. Then I close all the layers from the 100 text layer, and I click here to deselect everything. And then I go to my toolbar above and I take the shape tool and I select the ellipse tool. I be sure that fill is off. I press OK. I set the stroke to a color and I set it to 50 pixels. And now I drag this and I hold shift to create a perfect circle, and I select the shape layer and I go again to align and I center this in the middle. Then I go to add here on the shape layer. I choose trim pads. I open the trim pads and now you can see here ends. I go again to my null object to open the slider again. I go to the end again from the trim pads from the shape layer and I take this symbol again and I do this to the slider. And normally if you go to the slider again and you change the number, you see the difference already. It follows the number. And what we can do also is go to the shape layer, go to stroke 1 and set the line gap to round gap, and it changed the end of the line to a round gap, if that makes sense. Now we can close everything and we can add also a gradient to the shape layer. And I do this to go to effects and presets. If you can't see it, you need to go to window, effects and presets. And I type in gradient and then I choose here the 4 color gradient and I drag this to the shape layer 1 and you see the colors already. I set it here to 100 by the null object to see the whole circle, so all the colors, and I can choose the different colors. And now we have our gradient. I close this and I go again to my null object and I go a little bit further on the timeline and I be sure that it is 200, and then I press here the stopwatch by slider and I go again to the beginning of the timeline. And then I go to my null object, I press U on my keyboard to see here the keyframe, and then I set it to 0. If I on the beginning of the timeline, I set it to 0. And normally if I play it, you see that it goes to 100. I select both keyframes here, I press F9 to create smoother transition. Let's see. Yes, that looks really good. And if it is too slow for you, you need to select the last keyframe and drag it to the other keyframe to make it quicker. And if you press N on your keyboard, you trim the timeline and it will loops the animation. And now we have our own counter animation expression in After Effects. If it was very helpful for you, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up, and then I hope I see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.